Welcome back. We're continuing our coverage of that tragedy on the Potomac River last night.
In just the last hour, we've learned multiple former students at Loudoun County Public Schools were involved in last night's plane crash at DCA. An American airline plane collided with an Army helicopter. All 67 people involved, that's 64 people aboard the plane and 3 aboard the helicopter, are all presumed dead.
First responders have pulled at least 28 bodies from the Potomac and are continuing their search efforts as we speak. Passengers from the flight from Wichita, Kansas included a group of figure skaters, their coaches, and their family members on board the Army Black Hawk helicopter. It was a young captain, a staff sergeant, and a chief warrant officer. They were doing a training when the crash occurred.
American Airlines says to call this number if you believe that you have a loved one on American Eagle Flight 5342. The number is 1-800-679-8215.
And as we continue to try to understand the shocking events last night of the American Airlines collision, we're getting a first-hand perspective from a former Army captain and Black Hawk pilot.
Here with us on what could have gone wrong and what goes through the mind in moments like this is Rick Henshaw. Thank you for joining us.
Therese, Karina, thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, Captain, I would first and foremost like to thank you for your service. And can you tell us about your experience as a Black Hawk pilot?
It was an honor and a pleasure, Therese. Thank you for being a great American. So I loved being a Black Hawk pilot. It was probably some of the most adventurous and rewarding 8 years of my life for most of the flying I did. Most of my flying was in Korea. I went there right after flight school in the late 90s, early 2000s. I spent about a year and a half learning at Fort Rucker in Alabama. And I did some flying at Fort Campbell, Kentucky with the 101st, right when General Petraeus came and took over that division. And we went to Iraq for the first year back in 2003, where I did my last flying there. So it's been a long time. It's been about 20 years, but some of the best memories of my life.
Well, that's incredible. Well, if we may tap into some of that expertise, early reports are showing that this could have been preventable from all of the experience that you just included with us. How maneuverable is the Sikorsky H-60, the helicopter?
Yeah, I mean, the Black Hawks are extremely maneuverable for their size and you know, for what they can do. It's one of the best utility helicopters ever made. You know, they do medevacs, they do search and rescue, they do transport. I think I read this one was a VIP transport, which that was most of what I flew in Korea. You know, I doubt this was, I mean, it didn't look like this was a maneuverability issue so much as just sort of airspace awareness and communications with air traffic. And, you know, most accidents are preventable, you know, pretty much. You know, it's just a matter of what are the factors involved. And in most cases, it's usually more than one, you know, because there's so many safety factors and redundancies that we have in there. And then the other thing to consider, you know, it's not just the challenge of flying, you know, where you have the actual controls, like you're driving a car. It's more the awareness of the airspace you're in. You know, when you're driving down the highway, you don't really have to worry about much other than the cars around you and the signs, because you're operating in 2 dimensions. But when you're flying, you have to know exactly what airspace you're in at any given time. You're monitoring your instruments, you're communicating with your crew, any number of people on the radios with the tower and other air traffic entities that you might be talking to. So just the mental acuity that you need and the awareness is far more challenging than just operating controls and maneuvering. And then the other thing is, you know, the added factor of flying in MDGs. You know, that's challenging in any environment. I mean, it's kind of like you're driving through a dark, foggy night and you're wearing sort of green tinted sunglasses. You know, it's you can see, but it's a challenging environment to operate. So
It's so good to hear your insight on this because it's a lot of things that the general public may not know or understand. In the next coming weeks and months and even a year with these investigations, what will you be looking to hear?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to hear more about what the pilots were doing specifically. You know, they were obviously on a training flight, but they were in very busy airspace, some of the busiest airspace in the country. So I would imagine, I'd be interested in kind of what was the pre-flight briefing? Were they, taking into consideration, all the relevant factors? Because before every flight, even if it's a training flight, you have a safety briefing, you get the weather report, you talk to your commander about what you're doing. And then, just the communication with the air traffic controllers, and sometimes it's a matter of, it could be on both sides, the pilots or the controller. We're human, we talk to each other sometimes like humans do, and you might think like, okay, I don't want to insult their intelligence. They clearly see that jet. I'm just going to kind of confirm, hey, you see that jet, right? And, they might say, yeah, I see it, but it could be another one. Like, they might be looking at a different one. So, why wasn't there like, hey, a collision is imminent, bank right hard, descend, something like that. I didn't hear that. And, sometimes it's just one of those human factors, where people are trying to be nice, polite, and just maybe not as urgent as, they should. And, tragedy can happen. But my experience is it's usually a confluence of factors, and there's probably multiple things going on there to look at.
Well, Rick, we truly appreciate your expertise and you sharing that with us here today. And again, we truly appreciate your service to our country as well. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. My heart goes out to all the families and people impacted, and thanks for all you do in covering this and keeping us all connected.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll be right back with more on this special edition of Living Local DMV as we continue to cover this horrific plane crash.